It is episode 8 of the Where Have You Been podcast. Can you believe it? I'm your host, Bill Ream. Another fantastic guest today. As always, I say it every time, and every time it is absolutely true. Today I have someone who is an author, another author who's been all over the world and has some fantastic stories to tell. I hope that you'll take a few minutes to rate and review the podcast, subscribe, share it with your friends, and all that fun stuff. I really appreciate you being here, and I appreciate all of the love and support that I've been getting for this podcast. I love what I'm doing, and I love that you're here. Enjoy this episode with Jasmine on the Where Have You Been podcast. And today I have another fantastic guest. I say that every episode, but honestly, we're pushing through this, and every guest I've had so far has been really fantastic. Today I have Jasmine with us, and Jasmine has been to many places that I'm sure we'll get into and talk about throughout the episode. But before I continue to go on, I'm going to give the floor to you, Jasmine. Who are you?
My name is Jasmine Haymond. I am the author of the Smarty Pants Travel Guide and Smarty Pants Travel Companion. I'm a travel enthusiast, and I do have a full-time job, but travel is my passion. I work to travel.
Is it a plan at some point, maybe someday, to have travel be your full-time job?
I would love that. That would be excellent for me. I love the planning stage and rounding out the trips, making sure that we get all of our information before we go, and then making sure our experiences are, very full and giving ourselves plenty of options, but also keeping in mind that if there are things that we can't make it to, that's okay too, continuing to be flexible.
Wonderful. So tell me a little bit more about the books and how that came to be before we get into like the travel stuff. I mean,
Okay.
it's travel, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. So it actually came with my first trip abroad. I had been to Puerto Rico, but I had never been to a quote unquote other country. The first time we went to Italy, I had done a lot of research with different videos and online research, but as we say, you don't know until you go. And so there were many information gaps, just little things that were really useful. And as I started compiling these things during our first few days, I realized that probably I could compile this and make it available. And so I decided to start taking notes and compile everything and make a little booklet so that, those need to know questions would be answered right away before, your plane hits the ground. So
Right.
just to make things easier.
And when was that?
Our first trip, I believe, let's see, about 5 years ago. And I had been to Puerto Rico in 2015. And then before that, of course, it was when I was younger, just entering elementary school. I had spent 2 summers with my grandparents. So I had a bit of, travel under my belt. I had done a bunch of domestic traveling, but that first international flight and international destination presented some different types of challenges and information and experiences that really made it apparent that it's great to have information before you go. And if, you do your proper research, there's always going to be things that do come up. But if you're well equipped and understand to just kind of, understand there might be challenges, go with the flow, it makes things a little less stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to have stress on a trip anyway, most times,
Hmm.
even if it's just a little bit. But yeah, I guess the more you can eliminate that and be prepared for, even if you're not prepared for the specific situation, having prepared yourself for some things can kind of help you maybe work through the process of getting through whatever comes up, right?
Oh, absolutely. And in those situations, I tell everyone the same thing. Just take a deep breath, understand it will be okay. The desk agents are there to help you. And if you just provide them with time and information, they will do their best to accommodate.
I think we should definitely get into that specific story once we get started. Before we move forward, though, I want to make
Mhm.
sure that you have a platform to tell everyone where can they find your book. and where is the best place to find you?
I am active on LinkedIn, and there is a post there with a link to my books. And also, both of them are on Amazon. So the first is Smarty Pants Travel Companion featuring Italy and Egypt. The second is the Smarty Pants Travel Companion itself. It doesn't focus specifically on location, it's more about preparation. So travel prep and awareness, dealing with currency, all of those kinds of things are wrapped up in that. And I will continue to do updates on it.
I was going to say, you have something that you're thinking about maybe for down the road?
Yes, actually, it should be next year because I want to do my next on the south of France and loop in Milan. So it'll be my first time to the south of France this year. And I definitely want to provide as much information as I can to be useful and help people understand the different areas and then distances, travel times, all of that type of thing.
So you also gave us a teaser on one of my final questions, which we'll get to at the end, but
Yes.
that's cool. So if you don't mind, let's jump in. So and again, I have guests that like to list the places. It doesn't matter to me how you want to get things started,
Mhm.
but in a phrase, Jasmine, where have you been?
So I've been to a handful of places abroad, namely Puerto Rico. I've been all across the US as well, but I've also been to Italy mainly and Egypt. We do have plans for more, as I said, but we had done 3 trips to Egypt. The first 2 were just alone, and then the third, we took my mother-in-law. And so it's being in that type of situation, it doesn't necessarily present other challenges, but it creates a different travel experience, which was actually incredible this time. So it was a really great experience for all of us.
So do you find this is something that came up in one of the episodes that I did prior? A friend of mine and I were discussing this. Actually, it just sort of came up actually
Hmm.
that solo travel, while it's fantastic and I love solo travel and I plan to do a lot more of it coming up in the future, sometimes the best memories that we make are with other people because you have that shared experience. Do you feel that way? Or do you feel like
Um,
you also have some really impactful moments just with solo travel as well?
I would say it's probably half and half for me because I've experienced both. So I've traveled with family, we've been to Disney. There was once when we took a caravan of us, there was like 12 of us. And so we flew down, had all the nieces and nephews there with us, and
That's a big
it
trip, a
it
big,
was
big group.
it was a big group. The important thing to note about that is let people, go in groups and meet back for meals. You can't take everybody all together at once all day long. So, but the best part of those trips was definitely seeing the children and their reactions. It's so pure. And then, like with my mother in law, she had never been to Egypt and experiencing the same thing, just that beauty of wide eyed experience and joy of seeing a place that is so different and so magical as Egypt is.
And then when you're together and you're telling the stories, I think it's
Hmm.
great to have that other person to, I remember it from my perspective and you remember it from your perspective. And there are definitely things that I don't remember because they didn't jump out to me. They
Right.
didn't necessarily appeal to my life, and
Hmm.
things that you will tell and we'll bounce off each other. And the story just comes together and like paints the picture. I love it. I love storytelling with someone that's also been the same place with me.
Oh, absolutely. And then you have those excellent memories of, seeing something for the first time and experiencing something for the first time with someone else. I always used to say one of my favorite things about Disney, I mean, I had been many, many times, but I always loved taking someone for the first time because seeing them able to relax and just enjoy themselves because where everything is. And you can just take them and they can relax and enjoy. And it was similar with Egypt. We had been a couple of times, so we knew exactly what to expect. And, seeing my mother in law being able to enjoy those things from her perspective and relax and just have a great time was definitely a memorable experience.
I keep thinking of questions that are not typically things that I ask, but just this, I love this conversation.
Yeah.
Do you, when you do take someone to a place that you have been and they have not, do
Hmm.
you like being the guide, so to speak, or do
Oh,
you
I
kind
love
of
it.
let them still sort of find their own way?
Well, we had both of us, we have our tour guide when we went to Egypt, but there are things that I was also able to answer because I have been so many times, and I mean, so many, three, but I had been a handful of times, and I had also done, a bit of study on my own. And so there are things that I knew before I went, but also learned about as I went. And being able to, kind of answer questions on the fly for her. And so it was definitely it's something that I definitely like doing. And I've thought about being a tour guide before, but I just don't know if it's something that suits me. And so but I do love taking someone to a place that I love because it's always easier to talk about, especially like Disney. Disney's very easy. The first time we all went together, I made sure that we rode Peter Pan first, and we went and got her a pair of ears, and we rode the teacups, and, all those things that, someone born in the 50s would have grown up seeing on TV. And so my mother said the same thing the first time I took her. She has a little bit difficulty with motion sickness. And I said, we don't have to ride the teacups if you don't feel like it. And she goes, oh, we're riding the teacups. I have been waiting for this since I was a little girl.
Oh my gosh.
So that was great.
How did she do?
It was fine. We didn't spin. We just sat and let the
Yeah.
ride do the work.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
That's
it
good.
was really fun. And that was actually a really great trip. We all had a really good time. It was just my mom and my brother and I. So it was really easy.
That's cool. You know what? Let's start at Disney. I mean,
Okay.
just because you've been a number of times, there's so many, everyone has different memories of walking and just seeing the castle for the first time
Right.
and, riding the rides. But is there anything that stands out to you just from Disney itself, from any of the trips that you've been on that were really impactful, just besides just the being there? I mean, your mom, that was a great story. Your mom, I mean, that's so
Yeah,
awesome.
it is. And, I had been, I always say over 25 times. I can't remember how many exactly. And so the thing I love about going to Disney, I always recommend going during the off season, or if you want to see holiday decorations, go the week after Thanksgiving. It's still going to be
I-
crowded, but it's good.
Is
And
this Orlando specifically, or have you been to Disneyland as
we
well?
always go to California.
Okay,
So,
so it's
or-
primarily Disneyland.
yeah, original Disney. I have been to Florida once, and for my part there, it was great because we went in March. And so it was temperate, it was beautiful, there weren't a lot of people. So it was quite nice.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a great time to go.
It is. It's really nice. And so, but for California, you do have to plan around crowds as much as you can. I tell people, at this point, go in January, February, March, try to avoid spring break if you can. But the summer is going to be hot and crowded, so bear in mind before you go. But a lot
I
of
wonder if that park is similar in size. I believe it's smaller than
it is.
Disney
So,
World. Yeah.
yeah, Disney World is, I think I want to say like 5 times because they have acres and acres of property, and each
Yeah.
piece is its own, sits almost like on an island. I mean, not necessarily everything is on an island. Some of them
Yeah.
are.
I was thinking just Magic Kingdom itself, though. I wonder how it compares, but I believe
Yeah.
it's still bigger,
Yeah, I
but I
think
don't
the
know.
park itself is a bit bigger, but the Disney property in Orlando is huge. It is gigantic. And so you can take buses from park to park, which is great. We always decided to end our days at Epcot for dinner, because they've got so many great restaurants.
Yeah. I
And
have an insider tip if there's not that we're a tip show, but insider tip.
tips are always good.
Um, yeah, if you do go to Disney World in Orlando, My
Hmm.
tip is park at Animal Kingdom
Hmm.
because they are the first park that closes. And
Ah,
so you park there, you take your shuttle to wherever you want to spend your day. When you come
uh-huh.
back, there is no issue finding your car because there's like 12.
Oh,
So
that's nice. Yeah, good tip.
there you go.
Good tip. Yeah,
Thanks.
I love tips and tricks are, my bread and butter. I love that, especially for Disney because, there are lots of apps and things like that, but it's so nice to be able to know where to kind of slip away in less populated areas of the park. If you're really tired, park on the train for a little while, and it's just it's such a great place. I love it.
Truly magical.
It is.
So any specific stories or instances that you can recall that stood out to you that when someone tells you, we're going to Disney, not just don't,
Oh,
not just go to this place or don't go to that place, but hey, when we
right.
were there, we
So the fireworks are always great, and Fantasmic is always great. It's a great show. Love it. And the Electric Light Parade is great. If, any of those things are always awesome to see. But my favorite part is watching the characters with the children because their experiences are so innocent and pure. It's just great. I always call her my niece, but she's my second cousin. She was, I think, I want to say 4, which is a great age, full of energy and able to, she was insistent on walking on her own and she stuck with us all day. She was a trooper.
wow.
And yeah. But she was sitting with us, and then Peter Pan and Wendy were there, and then they were leaving to go back in, and she called after Wendy, and Wendy stopped and gave her a hug.
Wow. That's heartwarming. That's touching.
Yeah, it's precious.
Yeah, that's awesome. My memory of of a character, and I don't even know if it's truly my own memory. I just remember seeing the photos of it. I was probably maybe 5 or 6,
Mhm.
and I think it was Goofy came up
Mhm.
behind me and ruffled my hair, and I was so upset. I don't know why. At that age, I was just like, "Don't do that again." But hey, it's an interaction with a character I'll never forget, even if it's
Yeah.
just a memory from a photo. But
Yeah, and even, with the little ones, you never know how they're gonna react. Sometimes they're a little, scared of the characters, they're not quite sure how to react, and others will just jump in their lap, so it's kind of you never know what's gonna happen. There's always, the reactions and little faces are always such an awesome thing to see, so.
yeah, do you interact with the characters when you can? Are you still a kid when you go?
Yeah. I mean, last time, let's see, I took my one of my girlfriends, we went, and she and I got a picture with Princess Jasmine, and we got a picture with Mickey. Fortunately, he was out in sorcerer style, and so we were out in front of the animation studio. He happened to be there, and so we were able to grab a picture because Mickey, he's kind of elusive in the park. He's a hard one to get pictures with, but usually in the mornings, if you walk into Main Street over to the right-hand side where the theater is, usually Mickey and Minnie are there early in the mornings with a handful of other characters, and you can get some photos.
Very cool. Anything else from Disney? I'm thinking maybe Epcot. Any stories or things that stand out to you there? Because it's
Epcot
such a
is
cool, different world. I mean,
it
it is
is
the world.
it is so awesome there. I love the design and all of the different countries. In particular, we were rounding out one of our nights, and I wanted to get they had, the UK there, and there was a little cart selling glasses and trinkets and things, and my father's side of the family is Welsh, and I wanted to get a shot glass that had the whale's dragon on it. And the young girl who was selling at the cart actually had my same last name. So I'm thinking, or my maiden last name, we were probably related because there's not very many of us.
Wow.
So that was a very, precious memory for me because it was
Did
nice to be able to see someone with my name.
did you mention or did you just bookmark
Yeah, I
that?
mentioned, and she said, "Oh, we're probably related. There's just a handful of us."
Wow. Very
And
cool.
yeah, it was really cool. And, Epcot it's really large and everything, but it's nice that way because it allows everybody to spread out. And there's always, something different to do every time you're there.
Did they do, I imagine they do in California as they do in Florida, different events throughout the year where they bring, like, they just have like a food festival of sorts or like a beer festival or things like that?
I know that's handled in California Adventure usually there's a winery there. And so
Okay.
they do food and cheese festivals. A lot of the time they'll pair it with an attraction like, Phantasmic, where you can go and get a box and of food and wine and then go and watch the show. So they kind of pair it that way. And then for the holidays, I know they do a lot of Christmas events, and then they also have, the evening Halloween party, but you do have to have tickets. And I know it's always sold out because why wouldn't it be?
Yeah. Okay. I just wondered.
So,
We went to Orlando the one time and they had in Epcot, they had a food
mhm.
festival that
Yeah,
was set up all the way around Epcot.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
really cool. Extra charge, of course, but it was so worth it. The food was incredible.
Yeah, and they have the advantage of size there. I always say the same thing. I wish Disney was just a bit bigger, but they only have so much square footage in LA. And so they have to kind of pick and choose how they have their events. But they do have lots of parades. They have fireworks in season every night. And they do have shows and things like that. So it's really at the Hyperion Theater, they'll be running a musical of one of the shows. Like I've seen Aladdin there, which was very well done.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Anything else in Disney that has happened to you that you or your family that you want to mention before we move on?
Well, I remember being the first time with my mother, how we were sitting and just watching Fantasia or Phantasmic, and just her, feeling about how much she loved it because she grew up watching Wonderful World of Disney on Sundays. She was raised very Catholic, and so she would be just on her dad to drive faster to get home to watch
Oh my
Disney after
gosh.
church on Sunday.
Oh, that's so great.
So it was great to see her be able to see something that she's loved her whole life, in person, because she had never been able to go before.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like she just really has probably really wonderful memories that you built for her that day.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot. We'll see pictures and she's like, "Oh, that was such a good trip." And I'm like, "Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. It really was." It was so fun.
Yeah. My mom and I have that with I did a trip for her some years ago. She grew up as as a Catholic, as a Notre Dame Fighting Irish fan,
Mhm.
and she used to love Johnny Unitas and the Baltimore Colts, who
Mhm.
eventually moved to Indianapolis. And so she had never seen either one of them play at their home stadiums. And so I found a weekend some years back where the Fighting Irish had a home game, and the next day the Colts had a home game, and I took her to both. And she still
Oh,
brings it up. She still brings it up at least a couple times a year.
and that's
She'll
so
pull,
gratifying.
yeah. Even
It's
though
nice to
it stunk because the Notre Dame game was so frigid.
Oh.
We didn't make it past halftime, but
Oh, wow.
she still got to see her team play in person. So
Yeah, yeah, and it's always nice to have those experiences when you have, a team or a band or a performer who you absolutely love and see them in person. That's always excellent.
absolutely. So I want to know,
Mhm.
switching gears a little bit, I want
Sure.
to hear the story from you about the travel desk. So I don't remember where you were going, but let's go there. But I want
Mhm.
to, and you however you lead up to that, because I want to hear that story.
Yes. So, fortunately for us, we were stuck in Italy. And so at Marco Polo Airport because we were leaving from Venice.
I've
And
been stuck in Italy before too. I'm going to add my story when you're done, but
yeah.
please continue.
So we got a notification the night before, and I realized that our flight got canceled. And I'm like, oh no, okay. all right, let's not panic. At the time, I did have enough, vacation time that it wasn't an issue for me. And so we just got up the next morning and prepared ourselves. We did check with our Airbnb host to see if we could stay a couple of extra days. But of course, since it's Venice, he had bookings in the next day. And so it's important to know that if there is cancellation on behalf of the airline is obligated to cover your hotel stay and transportation and 2 meals per person per day. So that's general. So I knew that already because I had experienced delays in the past. And so I just went in with the mindset of, okay, let's see where this goes. So we get to the airport. Our desk agent did not arrive when we were supposed to check in. So we were just waiting in line. And we could see, everybody can see the departure board and all of the red canceled flights. And so I went up to the desk when it was my turn and I said, we are supposed to go through, I think we're supposed to go through Munich and Lufthansa. And so the desk agent looked around and she called around for probably 10 minutes. And I said, can we get a hotel nearby for 2 nights and we need, our accommodations. And I specified what we wanted. And so she did her best. And then she's like, you know what? I'm going to need a little more time. Can you give me like 5 minutes? And I said, how much time do you need? And she's like, can you give me 20 minutes? I said, I'll give you 30 minutes. We're not going anywhere. I said, I pointed to my husband who was sitting just across the lobby there. And I said, across from the desk and everything. And I just said, we'll be sitting over there. If you need me, flag me. If not, I'll come up in 30 minutes. And she said, thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
because I'm sure
so,
everyone else was in such a
yeah,
rush to go
yeah.
nowhere.
And a lot of people are pretty cranky. They were already grumbling in line, before she got there. And so I just said, you know what? We're just going to handle this and let it go as it goes. And so we camped for a half an hour, which is no big deal because you're not going anywhere anyway. And we went back up and I just said, what are our options? She goes, okay, I have you arranged and I will take you downstairs and get you to your transportation. And she hooked us up.
Wow.
So she got us VIP transport to our hotel, which was so nice. We got to stay.
What does that mean?
Well, it was kind of, I would say 3-star and
Okay.
very, very nice, clean 3-star in Treviso, which was about 40 minutes north, 30, 40 minutes north. And fortunately for us, our balcony faced a farming field and we could see the town we were nearest with the church spires and the Dolomites in the background. It was
Oh,
incredible.
wow.
And
That's
down by the
awesome.
canal, there was a walking path. So we were able to take a walk one of the days and just relax and went to the restaurant and the hotel, got excellent food. The tortellini was out of this world. And, we just enjoyed ourselves and decompressed for a couple of days and got back on. And we ended up having a direct flight from Heathrow. So we flew from Venice to Heathrow in London, and we ended up catching a direct American Airlines flight back to Salt Lake. So it was great.
Wow. That's
It
so,
turned it, it turned out being great.
yeah. I mean, so you got to walk around walk around the town and I'm sure you
Hmm.
ate well, like you said.
Yeah. And
It's just so,
it's just a matter of how how you look at it. You can be pissy about it or whatever, but just say you're not going anywhere for a couple of days. Any, reimbursements or whatever, if you're missing work and fretting, there's nothing you can do about a worker strike.
that's it.
And
Yeah.
so just, enjoy your time while you're, stranded a little bit.
Yeah.
Fortunately, though, we
And,
were in Italy.
and I think it's a good point to talk about. You and I had talked about this a little bit before,
Hmm.
that the person who's on the other side of that that's trying to help you, they're just a human being just trying to do their job. And it's
Absolutely.
not their fault that there's a strike either. And
No.
emotions can run a little high, especially when there's a case not like that, where
Hmm.
this plane didn't make it in. And so you have to catch a different flight, and there's others available, and you're all fighting to get the next flight out.
Hmm.
But even still, that person on the other side of that desk is just a person, and they're just
Yeah.
trying to do their best. They want to help you and get you out of there as quick as possible, just like you want to go.
Yeah, exactly. And
So
they'll do
just,
their best. And
yeah,
like I said, they'll do their best, but they cannot move mountains. And I always say the same thing, how would you feel if someone came up and just started yelling at you for no reason?
yeah,
Really.
absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
not too pleasant. And so I always encourage, just take a breath and just say, "Okay, what are my options?"
Yeah. Realize the situation, take it all
Exactly.
in, and then humanity is highly recommended. Yeah.
Yes, yes, because,
So,
if you're insufferable, they're going to want to get rid of you as quickly as possible and might not be able to present as many options as would be suited to.
mhm, yeah.
And so if you're patient, patience usually pays off.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, mine was a little bit different. We were in Rome,
Mhm.
honeymoon time, and I think it was a matter of misjudging the airport there when we were going to fly out, because the international flights went from a totally different area of the airport. We didn't realize that we needed extra time when we got there. You're used to getting there like 2 hours ahead. And I
Mhm.
think we cut it close as it was, but when we got there, they needed so much time to get the baggage from the ticket agent area to the actual departure area. And
Mhm.
we missed that cutoff by like 10 or 15 minutes. And there was just nothing that they could do. And it turned high stress very fast. Her, her emotions ran high. I'm the more laid back anyway. I'm like, what are we going to do?
Mhm.
Hey. And it turned out to be, we found, or I don't know if they helped us find a place or if she just found a place that was very near the airport. Oh my gosh, it was beautiful. It was such an
Mhm.
incredible place. They had an outdoor, like, tiki bar
Oh, that's
and,
so nice.
and a pool and music playing, and we proceeded to have maybe a few cocktails more than we should have and just had the most incredible time just
Mhm.
sitting outside. I'll just never forget that, and that was that could have been my favorite experience in Rome, to be honest. Maybe not, but it was so memorable that we wouldn't have had that if we hadn't missed our flight,
Yeah,
and it
and
all worked out fine.
sometimes those situations turn out to be kind of a blessing in disguise. They just kind of happen and it ends up being a nice time.
Well, and I think part of it too for us was, you try to do so much when you're in an area like Rome for a short
Oh,
amount of
yeah.
time
Yeah.
that you're spending every moment making sure you're not missing something that is grand and incredible. And
Mhm.
so, like, it was almost like we needed that anyway. We just needed those 5 or 6 hours to just relax and unwind and just, from our vacation, just take a rest.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Decompression is another part of what I recommend as well. Pad your vacation time with a couple of days after if you can, or back it up against a weekend or a holiday weekend where you have 3-day weekend, just to be able to unpack and clean and relax.
yeah. So you so that was when you were leaving Italy, but let's talk about
Mhm.
Italy, if you don't mind. I've been a couple of
Sure.
times, and I've been a couple of the places you have. I spent time in Venice. We actually stayed on a small island off of Venice, which is made up of Venice is what 116 little islands as it is.
Yeah, Venice is
And I
pretty
and I did
incredible.
Rome. Venice was so beautiful.
It
Uh,
is.
but yeah, please, any tell me some experiences that you had in Italy. I know you have to have some beautiful ones.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll tell you on my first arrival. So we flew from the US to Genoa, and arriving in Genoa, we were coming down, and everyone in that plane, it was just a little hopper, but so probably, I think it was a two and two, two on each side. And everyone on the plane was looking out the windows because all of us were just like, we're here, we're here. And seeing the coast with the water and the beautiful homes cascading up against the hillside with all the beautiful green foliage. It was just incredible. And we landed, and you get off the plane, you walk outside, and then back in to get your luggage. The Genoa airport is an excellent airport to get into because it's tiny. So you just walk inside. There are only two little carousels, and then there's a lobby area. It is so
I
tiny and
like little
awesome.
airports like that. I
Oh,
think
it's
they're
the
cool.
best. Instead of trekking and then having to take a bus and then a train and
Right.
all that stuff. So,
Yeah, you get off the plane, there's your stuff.
yeah, exactly. And so we pulled out and got our luggage. And then, fortunately, I always say the same thing. If it's warm where you're going, but you're traveling on a plane, take some sandals with you so that you can at least give your feet a break. And outside, we grabbed a cab and they took us to the train station. We trained over to the Cinque Terre. We stayed in Monterosso El Mare. It's the first of the 5 port towns. And when we got there, we got off the train and walked out the train station, and it was just glorious. It was so beautiful, sunny, and the water was excellent. We went in late September, so plenty warm, plenty warm. And we met our host at the train station. She was waiting just like a block down the road, and she took us up to our little flat. We got settled and immediately went down to the water.
Yeah.
So through the Cinque, most of the beaches are going to be a little bit pebbly, and also I know the Côte d'Azur in France is the same way. But just take water sandals, or if your feet can handle it, knock yourself out. But the water is beautiful, and usually it's above 70, if even into late September.
Wow. So what
And
else? Yeah, tell me. This is an area I've not been to, so.
yeah, the Cinque it's a national park area, so you can get your passes online. I think they're like €12, really affordable. And there's a trail that connects all the 5 villages, and you can do the trails. I will say they are kind of mid-range challenging, so it's best to have trekking poles because there's a lot of up and down into the villages is usually pretty steep. So you're going down, rock faces, and it's like stairs. And so trekking poles are definitely something I utilize for sure. And especially if you're, like I have a dodgy knee, so
Yeah, I
you
recommend them
just
anyway.
yeah, and wrap your knees, wrap your ankles, bolster in the morning with band-aids around your ankles and stuff if you tend to blister. And I always say the same thing. If you're going to be hiking, band-aids, super glue, and wraps. So,
There you go.
but the Cinque is beautiful because, it's highly traveled. Like there are a lot of people that go there, but I will say that it's extremely clean for how populous it is and visited it is. And everybody's fairly respectful. There's not a lot of, craziness going on because it's very relaxed there. And the shop owners are very accommodating. The food is excellent. Some of the best seafood you'll ever have. And I know the Shakitra wine and the olive oil are some of the best, and the pesto as well.
Tell me you have a story about whether it's a meal or do you, let me ask you this question too. I ask this of a lot of people. When you're in other countries, do
Mhm.
you try to not seek out, but do you try to have conversations with locals or other travelers that are there?
Very occasionally, my husband and I are kind of hermitish. We're a little introverted. So we tend to keep to ourselves, but usually we'll have good conversations with our hosts because we recommend renting flats because you can have a kitchen, especially if you're staying more than a night or two. So if you're staying in a place for a week, we recommend getting a flat because you can have groceries and a kitchen at your disposal. It's much more comfortable, and oftentimes they're equipped with a washer, and so you can do laundry.
Yeah, and I
Um,
agree with you. Even if it's just for breakfast, it's nice to be able to. You could plan to spend money for a couple of meals a day, but if you can cut one
mhm.
and just yeah, it makes such a big difference.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. And it's good to connect with your host and they will have recommendations because they live there, So it's easily done. If you're in larger cities, I recommend talking to the tourist offices for local tour guides. They're going to have a vast knowledge of what's available in the area, really good restaurants. And our host in the Cinque, she was readily available and told us where to get, the best gelato and really good dinner. Of course, his restaurant Mickey in Monterosso. It's a fine dining experience, absolutely worth it. It's not too pricey though, but it is right across from the beach, and it's really an excellent restaurant. So you can eat outside on the patio, or you can go inside if you like. And the presentation is excellent.
Yeah, wonderful. Not necessarily staying there, but just anywhere in Italy that stands out to you that you remember specific experiences, whether it was, I guess it would have been you and your husband.
Hmm.
Um, just these are the stories that you have to tell people when you talk about Italy.
One in particular, when we were in Venice last time, we made the trek out to St. Erasmo, which is their garden island. And so all of the produce, or a lot of the produce, comes from there. And it's very quiet. The shop is only open one day a week. And we went out there. It was quite desolate as far as people go. I mean, it is inhabited. But we did a short walk around and it was just beautiful. And I can definitely see why people live there because it is gorgeous and it is so quiet you could hear a pin drop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was the shop open the day that you went, or did you just go to go?
Yeah, we actually missed it. So
Okay.
we weren't sure when the shop was open, but it is pretty much just kind of a short walk, maybe a block away from the boat station.
Hmm.
And then we went walking down one of the lanes on would be considered a dirt road here, but it was more gravel there. And there were several beautiful farmhouses with gorgeous trees and fruiting trees. There were beehives and chickens, and it was so great.
I love Venice so much. And
Oh,
I,
it is
and the
incredible.
water taxis, the taxis. Once you get the hang of it, like the first
Mhm.
trip or two, those are fantastic. I love
Oh,
those themselves. Just I took so many pictures just from the boat.
yeah, absolutely. And my husband has a GoPro, and he uses his GoPro on a stick all the time when we're on the boats because it's so nice because you're out there and it's a different vantage point than from the island. And so you can see all the palazzos and the shops and all of the gorgeous art advertising that they do. They'll do, very modern or very traditional displays of, you know, installations that are going on, or just the standard, like the Guggenheim, which is always there, and the Academia. They will have large, banners on possibly palazzos that are not lived in, so that's not taking away from, anyone living there. And you can see the beautiful advertising and also any of the events that are going on. They'll have, they're constant events. So they'll have shows where you can go see opera and have wine or light fare. And then they'll have music where they're playing Vivaldi, or they'll have, of course, Carnival, which is a huge event in Venice. It's the event. And so everyone is always prepping and planning for that. And then, but one of my favorite things there was being able to be there. And we usually stay in the district of Cannaregio and just off the Goulier stop and bridge. And so there's a grocery store there and I would say it's not a fruit market, it's just a cart that's there, which is nice to get fresh produce from. And you can always see, events as well because they post all over the island. And so you can see those beautiful advertisements there, posters on the old buildings. And it's just such a unique place. It is so unique.
Yeah. I'm going to tell a quick story
Yeah.
because it's one of my favorites from Venice, and I don't get to talk about this very often. And it
Hmm.
actually started in 2016 when I was in Rome because we took a day trip from Rome to Naples to get some pizza.
Hmm.
Well, we also went in the middle of August, and all the
Oh.
families were on holiday. So many places were closed. My food adventure or whatever, the first time I was in Italy was terrible,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I made up for it the last time I was there. But so we went to Naples, we took the train,
Hmm.
and at the same time, the places that were open that are those like down the alleyways and they serve the slices of pizza and there's nowhere to sit because that's just not the way they do it.
Hmm.
Go grab a slice of pie, right? We got there at like quarter to three. They all close at three. And they don't reopen until 5 or 6 o'clock. So okay, now I'm really bummed out. So we find a taxi cab. This gentleman does not speak a lick of English, but we conveyed to him that we wanted to go to his favorite pizza place. And so he figured it out and he drove us to this place. And somehow he conveyed to us we had to try the fried pizza.
Oh,
And so
wow.
we got there and we ordered not fried pizza. It was wonderful, but it was not fried pizza. So for years since
Hmm.
2016, I've even like it'll pop up somewhere. I'll be watching like a an episode of some food show or something, and they'll be like, "Oh, this guy in New York City is from Naples or Napoli, and he makes fried pizza, and it's so good." And and I'm so jealous. And so we went for my daughter went to school in Prague, and
Hmm.
when she graduated, this was last year. We took her to Italy for her graduation gift. And so we went to Venice and we did a walking tour.
Hmm.
And I pulled the tour guide aside and I said, "Is there any place that you know of around here that has fried pizza?" She's like, "Oh, yeah, right down here, here's the name of the place. He's from Naples and he moved here a few years back and he opened this place and he makes fried pizza."
Oh,
So it
excellent.
turns out that there's a day that my other daughter was not feeling well. She actually didn't feel well the whole time we were in Venice.
Hmm.
So my wife stayed with her. Side note, medical care. What the heck? We took a bus to this. I'm sorry to keep talking. We took a bus to this hospital
Uh-huh.
to have her taken care of. Couldn't find a soul. We finally found like a janitor. And that person took us
Dear.
around and about and around to finally to, I guess, what they would consider their ER. There was two people
Hmm.
just sitting behind a desk and it was just quiet and kind of dark.
Hmm.
And through translation, our phones didn't have signal, so we really couldn't. It was really hard, but we finally got her looked at. And you know how much that cost us? This is crazy. So we go, they give us a slip. We don't pay anything there. They give us a slip. We go back to where we were staying. We have to go to a tabacaria to
Hmm.
pay for the medical bill. It was $20.
Yeah.
And then we went to the pharmacia.
Hmm.
And I think that the antibiotics they got for her, I think it cost us $4
Yeah.
for that. I mean, it's like, what?
Isn't it
Okay.
crazy?
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I know. I always have to go in to get travel gum for the boats.
Uh-huh.
And so, I mean, I've got wristbands on all the time, but I usually by the second day, I'm like, okay, I need travel gum. And so I'll go in, and it's just so awesome to be able to speak with a pharmacist. They're so knowledgeable and kind,
Yeah.
and they have
And
everything,
efficient.
whatever you need, they've got it. It's so
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. We waited 5 or 10 minutes, maybe, because they were a little bit
Mhm.
busy. And she
Mhm.
was like, okay. She ran out back, came back out. We were gone. Good to go.
Yeah, it's so nice.
And so because my daughter wasn't feeling well, this was like the perfect opportunity for me. I'm gonna
Mhm.
go off on my own for the afternoon. So I take the boat taxi and I go back to the main island of Venice. And I walk down, find the place. It was the most incredible. I'm telling you, I wish I could describe it. The crunchy outside and it was so soft. And when you get a pizza in Italy, it's meant to be a person's meal, or if
Yes.
you share, you do more than. But it's a perfect portion, a perfect size, thin. I ate the whole thing with no problem.
Mhm.
and it was magical. And I can't wait to have fried pizza again. I'm so glad I did that. And then I decided to just do a little walking by myself. And there
Mhm.
are actually, I want to say there's three leaning towers in
Yes.
Venice.
Mhm.
And so I made my way, and it was just such a beautiful walk. I have photos the whole way. It's like everything is so picturesque.
It
And I
is.
found this leaning tower, and I got some pictures of that. And I just spent such a great day by myself. It's,
Yeah, and sometimes that can be really magical, and the first time we went, we kind of got quote unquote lost, right? Because Venice is a labyrinth. And my husband was doing the navigating with, Google Maps. And so we're just walking around and I just followed him and was just enjoyed it. It was great.
yeah,
And we found a little teeny shop. Both of us were sore, so I got some arnica oil and they had everything. So they had a little bit of produce. It was a teeny little shop, but they had everything. They had pasta and rice and veggies and juices and milk and, non-perishables and stuff like that. So I went in and loaded us up and we made it back to our flat and just relaxed for the afternoon. It was so great.
yeah. And my one last thing that I'll say about Venice
Mhm.
was, boy, did it make up between Venice and we went to Milan and Bologna, and the boy did that trip make up for the food that I did not have in Rome. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I I bought so many helpings of, I understand the proper pronunciation now because I was very quickly corrected.
Uh-huh.
Bruschetta.
Yes,
It,
bruschetta.
it was, oh my gosh. And I told the waiter, they were a
Mhm.
little bit like, not standoffish, but just very direct. And my father-in-law actually at the time was like, I don't like these guys. They're kind of mean. And it's like, no, I just think that's who they are. It's just their personality. And they would laugh and chuckle a little bit if you got them to talk and interact, but just doing their
Yeah.
jobs, they're just very direct. And I told him it
Yeah.
was so good. He's like, it's just bread, and I'm like, but it's so good. Like,
Yeah. They
uh,
really everything is different there. It's especially Venice. They really make sure to bring I mean, there's plenty of places you can go where the food is it's okay. But if you seek out the places that are reputable and or even if you go to the grocery stores, their delis are incredible. We would go to Despard and load up and we'd get crackers and cookies, stuff that you need carbs while you're walking. And then we'd have, meals that we could quickly prepare at home. And then we had a couple of nights out and, you know, my husband was able to get his seafood he loves, and I would have the carbonara. It's just excellent. The food in Venice is incredible.
absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And we actually, we don't like to go to the same place more than once,
Hmm.
especially if we're in a place just for a few days. But this restaurant was so incredible. We ended up eating there twice. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's the
so
place that we frequent is, well, we don't frequent, we go every time we go, is Florian in St. Mark's Square because they have excellent food. It's
okay.
so good. I mean, it's just a ham and cheese sandwich,
Mm,
but the prep and the ingredients are just, you know, premium. And so
yeah.
you can't get anything better. And the last time we were there, we went up in the Campanile and it was so freezing. It was like, it felt like it was 30 below. I mean, it wasn't, but the
Mm.
wind up there is just chilling. And so we went downstairs and I'm like, let's get into Florian. And it was nice and cozy in there. And then I ordered hot cocoa, it was almost like chocolate pudding. It was so thick.
Oh my
It
God.
was so good.
Oh, yeah, now I'm jealous.
Yeah, if you get back to Venice, I mean, it's a higher price because of the ambience, but I will say it's worth it because of the quality of the food. If you order a bottle of water, it comes in a glass bottle. They're not bringing you out a plastic bottle of Arrowhead.
Right, right.
So it's mountain spring water from the Italian Alps. So it's just premium cuisine even, and I think it's kind of medium priced, so
Mhm.
for what you get, it's just incredible. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah, and weird thing too, like we always get still water when we go to places, but
Mhm,
that was the first time that we had sparkling water that I truly enjoyed and
mhm.
would have chosen to have. Like, I don't know what the difference is, but it was so good.
Yeah, the agua frisante is it's so good. It is I don't know, the Italian Alps produce many different types of water, and local here, I'm not familiar with any, sparkling water you can get, but Pana is always really good. It's, an excellent Italian water. I mean, I love Evian too, but that's French.
Yeah,
And, but in Italy, they have several, many hot springs, especially as you get further north, and, those waters are available to drink. It's so nice.
yeah. Awesome. I love it. I We're pushing an hour. Sometimes
Mhm.
we go longer. It's up to you, but I definitely you're the second person I've ever talked to in my entire life that's been to Egypt. I would love to know if you, I know you kind of touched on it, if there's
Mhm.
anything that you want to say there, but I definitely want to touch on Puerto Rico before we wrap because it's one of my favorite places on earth. But do you have anything
Mhm.
from Egypt that stands out? And I don't want to take anything away from Italy. If you have anything else that you're like, this is a must tell experience or story that I have.
Yeah, I
It,
think with Italy, Italy is what you make it. And if you seek out and do your research, you will have a good time. That's what I have to say about Italy. But it is very easy to have a good time because especially when you're in Rome, you've been there. There's food and drink everywhere. You know, like
Mhm. Well,
there's
except for when you go
stores
in the
and
middle of August.
yeah, yeah. And I recommend shoulder season for any travel. But for Egypt, I would definitely recommend doing the Nile cruise tour if you can. It gives you a full, well-rounded trip of the major sites. So if you only have a certain amount of time, and you can do this one of three ways. You can go with a large tour and do a big bus tour. That will cut your costs way down because they can spread those costs over 30 to 50 people. You can go with a small group tour, which is like 8. We did that our first time. It was quite nice. Or you can hire a private guide and just go with the guide, and the guide will, arrange your transportation and make sure you have your boat reservations and things like that. And one thing I definitely would recommend for Egypt, yes, see the pyramids. Yes, see the Sphinx. Yes, see sound and light shows. Go to Karnak. Do Komombo. Do all those things and the Nile cruise. But take the extra effort to go out to the island of Philae.
What is that
The
like?
temple the temple out there, so you go down to Aswan, which is where it's the original location of where they press the oils. So Egypt is known for pure essential oils. That art was created there. And so they can show you the big stones on Philae where that began.
And we're talking hundreds and thousands of years that they've been
Thousands
doing
of
this.
years. Yeah,
Yeah.
thousands. And so Aswan, they have excellent oil shops. They also have great cotton shops and many different restaurants and hotels, all that kind of thing. Aswan is quite nice. And but if you tell your tour guide, we would also like, or if you're going through Go Way, which is who we used, they can arrange with the tour guide locally to go out to Philae. So you take a flight down to Aswan or the boat down to Aswan, and then once you arrive, your guide will take you either by car or by van and out to the port where you will leave and go to Philae. And you get on these, they're like, you've been to Disney, so you've seen the Jungle Cruise, right?
Oh, sure.
They're that style of boat. It's great.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and so it has a lot of them, the guys will decorate them as they see fit, and some of them have, different styles of curtains and pillows and stuff like that, so it can be really fun, and some are just bare bones. Most of them are white, and then they'll decorate with different curtains and things along the side. But it's so nice because the boats are low enough that you can stick your hand in the water if you want. And out to Philae, usually we recommend going to every site as early as you can. And first thing in the morning, it's so nice out on the water. And then as you get to the island, it kind of emerges out of the rock. And the pillars they're more recent. So they have the leafy capitals, but it is beautiful. And Philae was saved from the water. So it was transported and put back together on that island. So the only thing that is out there is Philae. And
Wow.
it is so beautiful. There is a restroom and a shop, so you can go get a drink and, relax for a little while. But it is a beautiful place. And then it's out there alone on the water, which is just magical.
I hope that you have a few or a couple of photos that you can send me that we can post about from that because it just sounds incredible.
Absolutely. The other
Yeah.
thing that is a not miss is Abu Simbel. Abu Simbel is the 4 big statues of Ramses on the hillside.
Okay.
It is incredible. They are huge. It's magical. It's the furthest south, next to the Sudan border. And if I recommend it for anyone going to Egypt, it is the best. And what I recommend is getting there, having them book the earliest flight and the latest flight back so that you can have like 2 hours, because otherwise it's like you get 40 minutes. So you've got to run down, see the monument, see the inside of the Nefertari temple, and then back up.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Very, very cool.
yeah,
Guess
and
I'm
I
gonna
will
have to
send
add
you a picture
Egypt
for
to my
sure.
list. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
do it. It's like nowhere else. I will say that, a lot of the places, it is very populated. The air quality is not the greatest, so, wear a mask if you're prone to allergies. I have to wear a mask, otherwise I will get, a sinus infection.
yeah.
And so, but if it's clear outside, usually it's not too bad. But they burn a lot, and so just be aware that that's going on.
Okay.
But if you're not sensitive, don't worry about it.
Awesome. 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 So anything else from Egypt of like a personal story? Anything that stands out to you before I jump back to territory of Puerto Rico?
Well, it's good to work with your guide and make sure that you're not missing anything. I would say, the guides are there to help you, but the sites do want to make money, so be aware of that. But also, it can be challenging sometimes because at some of the sites, there will be children wanting to sell bracelets and things for one
Yeah.
American dollar, so just be prepared for that. Usually I just try to keep moving.
Yeah.
But that's really hard for me because, you just want to give your money to all of the little children because that's what they're doing all the time. So that can,
Anything that stands out as just a memory that something you'll never forget being there? Because I know that
oh,
was special for
yes.
both of you.
Yeah. And when we got to Philae, she got off the boat and just gave me a huge hug. And she said, "Thank you so much for bringing me here." So that was really special.
Had she heard of Philae before, or
No. So
yeah?
she knew about, the pyramids, of course, and Egypt. Kerry Muhlstein, who is a professor at BYU, he also lives in her neighborhood, and they're always talking about it. And so he's telling her different things, and she's always been fascinated by it. Her mother went years ago, and she's always wanted to go.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love
Yeah.
it when you can make memories for someone special to you. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. It's that's kind of a unique thing, and it's very, you know, satisfying and gratifying to be able to do that for someone.
Yeah. So can we hop on to Puerto Rico for just a bit before we wrap things up? Because like I
Sure.
said, it's one of my favorite places on earth. We actually we considered between two places to buy a place to have that we could just go whenever we wanted to. And
Mhm.
Costa Rica won out just by a smidge, and it was only because of just not having to worry about hurricanes. But otherwise,
Right.
I would live in Puerto Rico. It's just so beautiful.
I would too.
Yeah. So tell me, I want to hear personal experiences that you had there. I have some really incredible ones, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah. So the first time was the summer before first grade. The second was the summer before second grade. So those first 2 summers, my mother was a single mom, and before my grandparents went back to Puerto Rico, my grandma, I spent a lot of time with her. And so I was used to hearing, Spanish all the time, and her cooking. And when she left, they retired and went back to Puerto Rico. I was missing her terribly. And so my mom talked to her and she said, I'll split the airfare with you. So she put me on a plane and I went down. And when I first went to Puerto Rico, the airport was not as it was now. If you have seen Romancing the Stone and she gets to Colombia and you can see there's like crates of chickens and stuff like that, that's what it
Hmm.
was for me. And so it was definitely a different experience. The weather, the level of humidity, if you've never been around it, it's almost shocking. And so I had to get used to the humidity, and also taking a ride, we had to do it in sections because as Puerto Rico is, it is a spaghetti bowl, the whole thing. And so we stopped in Bayamon, which is about a half hour from the airport. And then we stayed with my great aunt for, I think, a week. And then we went out to the house where my grandfather was, and we stayed there the rest of the time. We did make it out to the beach twice. Barranquitas is actually in the center of the island, and it is quite a trek to get to a beach. So I didn't have a lot of beach time, but I did get to go a few times. But a lot of it was hanging out with grandma and grandpa. My grandmother would take me down into the jungles to get eggs because they're chickens.
Oh
And
my gosh.
so she would grab a machete and
To clear a
I would
path?
to clear a path, and she would put me in one of my grandpa's old shirts, and you'd have to be covered, otherwise
I'm sure there's
there's
ticks and
bugs.
other things. Yeah.
Yeah. So she would make sure I had long socks on under my pants, and I'd wear one of my grandpa's old shirts, and we'd go down, and she would be hacking away, and the hens would nest in the roots of the trees. So she would lift the hens if they were sitting on eggs and grab a few.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
And
it's
so,
so awesome.
yeah. And one of my favorite things,
But
though, I
and it, but
remember,
it's awesome to me because it's not like we don't that doesn't happen here. And
no,
for her, it was just, hey, I need eggs. I'm gonna go hack a path and grab an egg underneath that
y-
hen.
yeah,
Just
exactly.
daily life.
It is. And it's just a different way. Things are still, they run on a different clock there. And one of my fondest memories was during the rainy season in August. Fortunately for me, the 2 years that I went there, the Augusts weren't bad. We didn't have hurricanes. So it would just rain for 2 weeks straight, and it smelled so good. And my grandmother would just leave both the front and the rear door open. And outside the house was on stilts at a ravine. And so out the back of the house, it was just jungle.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love the smell of rain anyway,
Oh,
but I just can't imagine.
it's so great.
Wow. I'm so jealous. And to have those memories that stand out to you at that age, those ages,
Mhm.
because, I don't remember much impactful in my life in first and second grade. Have you been since?
Yes, we went. So we went for my grandfather's funeral when I was 18, 18, 19, something like that. And then there was 10 of us staying in the house. And that was fun, even though it was for a funeral. The funeral was hard, but after the funeral, everybody kind of was able to balance out. And we just hung out and ate food, and it was good.
Yeah.
And after that, my brother and I are 20 years apart. So he graduated high school in 2015, and the January of that year, I had been on the alert list from Expedia, and they sent me you know, this deal I could not pass. It was for 4 people, airfare, 2 cabana rooms at the Gran Melia on the beach, and a car for $3,400.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. And fortunately, even though like a lot of the golf resorts, they'll put the golf course in between the road and the beach and the resort so that
Hmm.
there's, peace in between.
Yeah.
We would drive out and there was a panaderia just down the street, like a light or two, and that my husband noticed. And we went in and they had avena, which is hot cereal, oatmeal, and then also cornmeal cereal, which is something that they make there. And it is so good in the mornings and very hearty. It gets you ready for the day. And, we went to, it's also close to El Yunque, which is the rainforest there. So
Yeah.
we were able to
Hmm.
go do that as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
Oh, I love it. I love hearing things like that. Is there anything else that you can think of before we kind of wrap things up? I have, a handful of questions to ask, but not even necessarily Puerto Rico, anywhere. We didn't touch on anywhere in the United States. We didn't touch on, where else didn't we touch on? Niagara Falls. I mean, just
Yeah,
any,
Niagara
not
Falls.
necessarily tips or tricks, but like just something that just stands out to you as like, this was just so magical or wonderful before we
Oh,
move to the,
definitely. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely see Niagara if you get the chance. It's
Hmm.
incredible. You don't have to, I mean, if you want to, dress in the rain slickers and get on the boat and go out to the falls, you can do that. But there's plenty to be seen from the rails. And the grounds of I don't know if it's necessarily technically a resort, but it feels like a resort. The grounds are beautiful. The shops are very cute and quaint. They do sell maple syrup there as well. And there's a long, like a mile bridge that you can walk across from the US side. And I recommend doing that. It's really an awesome spectacle. And it's something that is natural, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I actually grew up just south of Buffalo. So
Hmm.
we would do trips to Niagara Falls, whenever. And when
Yeah,
I was
Niagara's
younger, of
beautiful.
course, you didn't have to have a passport or anything to get across to the Canadian side as long as you had a driver's license.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so well, I was
yeah.
a
You
little bit
do need a
spoiled by that.
passport now.
Yeah. Passport, or they have something if you're in New York, they have
Hmm.
something called I can't remember exactly, but it's some sort of enhanced driver's license that just lets you go back and forth to Canada.
Hmm.
But yeah, there's a small town in the Canadian side, Clifton Hill. So there's a small. I don't know if you happen to get to Clifton Hill, but if
Mm-mm.
you ever go to the Canadian side again, or if you ever get to the Canadian
Mhm.
side of the falls, this area called Clifton Hill is so awesome, especially once the sun goes down. It's
Mhm.
just so lit up. You almost feel like you're in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
There's like museums and there's restaurants and there's go-karts and there's a Ferris wheel and
Oh,
it's
I'll have to add that to
it's
my list.
oh, it is
For
such an
sure.
awesome area. We would actually sometimes, even after we moved to Pittsburgh, we would go up and see family in Western New York, and then we would make like a just a 2 day, just real quick, just drive up just to go to Clifton Hills, spend a night, do it during the day, and then head back. And it's just so awesome. Great
Yeah,
food, little
that's
expensive because it is definitely a tourist destination,
oh,
but
sure.
so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those places usually are. One thing I did love about York, we went to see fish on tour. So we saw
Ah,
them in Rochester and then we drove 4 hours to Glens Falls
yeah.
and saw them there. But the thing I love about driving across the state of New York are the rest stops.
Hmm.
They're well equipped and there's usually people who will be selling wares outside. Like
Yeah.
we bought a little jar of honey from some farmers that had some fruit and veg out there. And it was the best honey I have ever had in my life because of the flora that is around there.
Yeah, it is really beautiful. I actually just talked to somebody on a different episode about
Hmm.
how sometimes we take for granted the areas that we live in
Hmm.
because, I people would tell me, "Oh, I went to your neck of the woods and it's just so beautiful." And I'd be like, "Yeah, it's
Okay.
okay. Yeah, it's fine." And then going back now that I haven't lived there for 15 years and seeing it,
Hmm.
I'm just like, and plus I'm older. I probably appreciate it more, but it is
Yeah.
beautiful.
And, sometimes it's, a rest is as good as a change. And, I live in Utah, and Utah is the outdoor state. We have beautiful canyons. The skiing is, some of the best in the world. And our Red Rock parks are incredible, all of those things. I'm used to it. And people say, Utah, this and that. I'm like, sure. But I do love coming home because I know my way around. I know where everything is because I've lived here for years and years and years. I've done plenty of visiting elsewhere. And I did spend a short stint living in Georgia for 6 months and, staying in Puerto Rico for a couple of summers. But it's comforting coming home to a place that you know.
Yeah,
And that
Utah's home.
and it is very clean here. It's
Mhm.
really nice. The state is well kept and it's beautiful. There's a lot of, they're really putting a lot of parks and things into infrastructure and gentrifying areas, which is really nice. And making things, it's always been pretty safe, but it's just a nice place. And I've noticed too, we live near the Capitol building in Salt Lake, and I've noticed over the last few years that people are actually using the Capitol grounds like a park now.
That's
Whereas,
cool.
yeah, for so many years, you'd see a few people here, a few people there. But now we walk on the weekends and there's just hundreds of people everywhere, which is really cool because the Capitol sits on, I would say, 4 square blocks.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of ground, and there's a tree-lined walkway and a lot of grass, so people are often doing picnics and things.
that's great. Yeah, I mean, if they'll let you, then yeah,
Yeah.
by all means, be respectful, but use the land, use the space.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to see that they're actually using that lawn.
Yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
So we're reaching the point because I can't keep you all day, all night. This part is a little bittersweet for me because I love to just continue to hear the stories and tell the stories, but
Mhm.
we have to wrap at some point. And I feel like you've probably left a whole lot of memories in bank that we didn't get to, and that's okay. Maybe we'll talk again. But
Yeah.
I just my handful of questions that I always wrap with. I'm going to start with the food one.
Mhm.
If you could pick a favorite meal, and again, and I tell everyone it does not have to be at a restaurant, your favorite meal,
Mhm.
not in Utah,
Mhm.
in the world that you've ever had, if you could pick one.
That would be my grandmother's Puerto Rican rice coupled with pastele. If you've ever had a pastele, you know.
Mm-mm. No, please tell me.
Okay, and a
You're like, I didn't
slice
want to break that down, but I will.
yeah, a slice of, chayote squash. So, the Puerto Rican rice, it's very specific because the peppers that are put in it, they're the ají dulce, and they only grow in Puerto Rico, to my knowledge. And so, the rice is very flavorful, delicious, and it's a little bit orangey. If it's done right, it's kind of a really dark orange, kind of a
Is
whiskey
are
orange.
are the peppers sweet?
They're just flavorful, kinda like bell peppers.
Okay.
And then, it's usually arroz con pollo, which is with chicken. And then the pastele it's kind of like a tamale, but you make the masa with, like, taro root and green bananas or plátanos, cacao, and it's just all ground down. You usually put it in a blender, and this process takes all day. And so you start chopping in the morning and blending, and then once you have the masa, that you also can put bacon or chunks of pork and then stuffed olives in it. And usually you wrap them in banana leaves, but most people do foil. And so they're like little just rectangular burritos, and then you steam them and then have them that way. And the flavor, if you're at your supermarket or if you're in an international supermarket and they have frozen Goya pasteles, try them. They're really good.
I will have to write that down.
Yeah, that's some of the best food. It's unmatched. That's at the top of my list. I do love Indian food. I love anything from Italy. There was a salad that we had with shrimp in Venice that was incredible. And the peachy pasta that I had was just so good. And then my husband had tuna, and it was excellent. So, those things are great, but the top of the list is my grandmother's Puerto Rican food.
Do you have any of the recipes? Have you made any of those yourself?
I've tried rice a couple of times, but it just doesn't come out because we don't have the ingredients.
Yeah.
You really have to fish for the ingredients. Tostones are really easy, which are just fried plantains,
Hmm.
but there's a little bit of a skill to it, but it's not hard. You just have to chop them into 1-inch pieces. You put them in and fry them like a fry daddy, and you just wait until the edges get a little bit brown,
Yeah.
and then pull them out and you smash them with I usually use a
How
coffee
might like?
cup.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like a coffee cup, so they're round.
Hmm.
And then you put them back in and they're ready if you like tap on them with the basket. They'll be crispy like a chip, and then you can pull them out and just have them with salt or whatever.
Yeah, I love a good tostone. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
tostones, the greener they are, the more I like them. I don't like red ones.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, very interesting.
yeah. And you have to wear
Okay.
gloves to prepare them, otherwise they'll turn your hands black.
Oh, pro tip.
Yeah, so the rind from the inside of the banana, it's very sticky and starchy, and so immediately it goes black on your hands.
Oh, that's
Like,
crazy.
it's
Okay.
almost like tar.
Wow. And it's not like lick it off your fingers and it'll.
Oh, no, don't do that. That would be really unpleasant.
No. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
All
tostones
right.
are something that anybody can do. It's really easy. You just have to know how to do it. You just have to put gloves on and then like just rubber gloves and then slice down and peel off the husk because it's quite firm, and then chop it into pieces, toss it in the fryer, pull it out, smash them, fry them, and eat them.
Yeah,
It's pretty easy.
and they're so good.
They are
Make a
so good.
large batch. Yeah, they're so good. Okay, three to go.
Okay.
Of all the places that you've been, I just love hearing the reasons, and
Hmm.
not that it's a knock on any place. You should try to go everywhere if you want. So don't,
Hmm.
just because we say something doesn't mean that you should, whatever. So of all the places that you've been, free trip, someone hands you a ticket, you're good to go. Go. And you're like,
Hmm.
nah, nah, I'm good.
Vegas. I've been to Las Vegas. Okay, now I think everybody should go once at least and go as
Hmm.
many times as you like.
Sure.
But I've been a bazillion times. I've been through Vegas at least 20, 30 times, and if not
You don't
more.
go and collect the playing cards that they hand out?
No. I've gone down, stayed at Caesars, gone to shows, stuff like that. It's a fun time, seen the Blue Man Group. It's way fun. But I've been enough and I'm good on it. But I do think that everyone should go and see it. It's pretty crazy and wild, and that's what that place is. I've seen concerts there. I saw Prince there.
Mm,
It was
wow.
freaking awesome. And so I definitely recommend it especially for concerts because the venues are excellent. And I've been there at New Year's. They close down the strip and everybody walks. It's really awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's nice because it's not sweltering.
Yeah.
And so New Year's is a great time to go. It's fun. But, just bear in mind it's a lot of alcohol. Um, it's a lot
Yeah.
of crazy, there'll be nudity occasionally. It's definitely a place for adults.
Yeah.
And if you're aware of that, it's not a big deal. And it is fun. But, I've been so many times, I'm good on it, and I need to, I want to go elsewhere in the world.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's one question I'd like to ask people. I don't ask everyone, but
mhm,
the world is vast. We will
it is.
never, very few people get to go to every country,
Right.
let alone experience just within the countries. But
Mhm,
is that something that you kind of make it a point? Like, yeah, I'm sure there's places, you still have family in Puerto Rico. You may go back a
mhm,
few times, but
mhm.
for actual trips, do you try to find different places so that you can get new experiences?
Absolutely. So that also goes hand in hand with my writing. I want to be able to produce information for as many places as I can. And I want that to be valuable information and usable information that people who have never traveled before, you want to go to this place, check out this guide first. There are, major recommendations, and do your research. watch every YouTube video there is on it, you know,
Hmm.
watch every documentary there is on it, talk to people who have been. But for me, I want to be able to provide specific details to help people prepare to have excellent trips. And, you know, there's so many places we have on the docket. And, you know, eventually I do want to get to Disney World. It's low on the totem pole for now because there are other places that I need to get to first.
Sure. But I love that your take on the tips and tricks that you're providing to people and the advice. It's
Hmm.
not, I don't want to say, because tips and tricks gets kind of a hokey term to me sometimes, but the true advice that you're giving people, that it's very important that you are doing it from a first person perspective, that this is what I experienced. I'm not just aggregating information that I'm hearing from others. Not that you maybe
Right.
don't do that. If someone gives you a solid tip,
Sure.
share it. But you are experiencing these things first person, that you
Hmm.
are turning around and giving the advice. I really appreciate that.
Well, and thank you so much. And absolutely, it's really important because, like, I think, you know, there's general information. These are the things you need to know. You know, you go to the airport, you need to arrive minimum 2 hours early. Don't carry anything over 3 ounces in your carry on bag, blah, 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 or weapons or anything explosive. Okay, that's general. But, and there'll be general things going abroad. But there's also, I wouldn't give the same advice for Italy that I'm going to give for Egypt or even here, you know?
Right, right.
So there's specific things like there's gratuity expected in Egypt. Know that.
Mm, very important. Sure.
You know, my husband and I each take a couple $100s in singles so that we can pay for restrooms. We can tip our the gate guards at each exhibit or location
And you can buy a
because
bracelet.
yeah, you can buy a bracelet from the little ones, you know, and support the local entrepreneurs. And so, you know, and there's plenty of things to buy there. You know, this is a place where oils and cotton and gold and alabaster, you know, are made and sold. And so it's nice to be able to go to those locations and pick up these items that are handmade, beautiful things that you cannot get anywhere else.
Yeah,
And so,
very,
you
very
know,
cool.
but in Italy, you don't have to worry so much about gratuity. You do need to pay for restrooms, but it's a pretty easygoing, fairly Western culture. Very easy to procure whatever you need, really. And so you don't have to be as prepared for Europe in general, I would say, probably as you do for Egypt. For Egypt,
Sure.
you got to be a little more prepared. So,
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah,
yeah.
again, I love that you're doing that. So,
Thank
okay,
you.
so you're not going back to Vegas anytime soon,
Not unless it's
but
through the airport.
and we just discussed that you tend to want to visit new places for a number of
Hmm.
reasons,
Right.
but and Puerto Rico can be your answer. Maybe I'll be a little bummed if it is, but maybe if it is, it's okay. Where of all of the places, just because I know, like
Yeah.
if you've gone once, I don't know anyone that has had a bad experience in Puerto Rico that would never want to go back.
Yeah. Plus the food.
Oh God, it's so beautiful. So, of all the places that you have been, where do you
Hmm.
have to go back? And if it is, it's okay.
No, it's Venice. Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
we absolutely love Venice and the Veneto. Like we're actually considering moving to the Veneto. And so we'll see if that comes to fruition when we retire. But I would love to live in the Veneto. The Veneto is so green and lush and beautiful. Como is, you know, an hour above Milan by train. Milan is a couple of hours from the Veneto, and there's just so much to do there. And through Bologna as well, the food. I mean, the food. And so Venice is definitely, you know, we have to go back. And I was telling my husband, partially joking, but not really, you know, we could end every trip in Europe in Venice.
Listen, I agree. I agree. I think, again, I've been not all over, and there's so much more to explore in Italy, but I've been
Hmm.
to four of the main places. Venice is probably my favorite that we went to, and they're all beautiful in their own way.
Hmm.
Venice is
They are.
just special.
It is. It's, the matter of they built that out of the water out of sheer will. And it is just excellent. And some of the artisans are the best in the world. They come from Venice. And, I know that, Florence has a lot of artisans as well. But Italy produces some of the most prolific artisans there are. And it's just incredible.
Yeah. Okay. Last one.
Mhm.
Where are you going?
Next, we are going to the south of France. So we're going to stay a little under a week in the south of France, just in Nice, and then we'll be touring. I actually have my calendar in front of me. So arrive in Nice, and then we'll do Villefranche. We're going to do a hike there, and then spend a day in Antibes, and then Cap Ferrat, and then Monton, because I want to go to the lily garden that's there, and then see Ez, and then we'll be in Milano for a couple of days. And tour, we need to go see the Gianicolo Vinciano, which is the Last Supper, and then there is the Trianelli Modern Art Museum as well. And then after that, it's a week in Venice. But after that, we're going to Japan.
So you swung the Venice this time. That's so
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
That's so
and
great.
it's just we always want to go back, but if it's close enough, I think we should. But
Yeah.
for the following year, we are going to go to Japan, which is
Oh man.
I'm so excited.
Where do you know? Have you at least picked a few places to go yet?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So we're going to stay in each place for a week. So we'll do
Oh
Tokyo for
my
a week,
God. Can I come with?
and
Oh,
I'll put you in my suitcase.
oh man. I won't fit, but
And
thank you.
yeah, so we're staying there, and I picked out a hotel that is not right in Tokyo. It's further out because they have it's not all natural, like a, natural hot spring pool. It's just like a, interior tiled pool, but it's a hot spring pool. And so I want to be able to utilize that at the end of every day.
Hmm.
And then we'll go take the bullet train to Kyoto and do Kyoto for a week, because I've got to get to that bamboo forest.
Oh, there's not a huge section about it, but there's enough about it that I think you would love episode 4. Please listen to episode 4.
Okay, I will check it
Yeah.
out for sure.
Yeah. That's it. Unless there's something that stands out that you just have to say or anything that you want to wrap with.
Um, be kind when you travel. It's challenging, especially if you're going internationally. You get there and air travel is so taxing on the body. You're exhausted, and the jet lag, it's not so bad going, and coming back, it's even worse. You gotta, have that time to decompress. But, it can be frustrating, and be kind, but also ask for help and make sure you're talking to desk agents. I tend to stay away from locals, especially in stations, because some of them, like we ran into a guy who wanted to help us for money in Rome, and that's
Yeah.
really not necessary,
Rome
you know?
especially is
Yeah.
notorious for someone will, can I take your picture? Because you're taking
Yeah.
selfies and then they
Yeah.
want
No, no,
money.
no.
And
Yeah.
then
Just,
and you walk away and they say bleeping Americans and
yeah, exactly. And so, be careful who you interact with, be kind, and, try to manage stress and fatigue accordingly. And I do talk a lot about that in my books because, especially for me, because I have, hypoglycemia that I deal with, and I am sensitive to motion and all that stuff. And so it's challenging for me, but I've learned how to handle it. So I wear earplugs and wristbands, and I take my travel medicine, if I'm going to be moving around too much or whatever. Always have those things to bolster with. And the other thing that I always recommend to people is bring things of comfort with you, whether it's clothes, music, snacks. Bring your favorite snacks that are, if they're non-perishable, stuff like that. I usually bring instant cream of wheat cereal to have in the mornings because, usually in every hotel room, or if you're staying in a flat, there'll be a teapot where you can do water. And it just helps me start my day. It's a little comforting for me to have something from home. because it's not something that's readily available everywhere. But
Sure.
it comes in pouches. You can take it with you, you know?
Yeah, quick and
And
easy.
so, quick and easy things like that help bolster against the fatigue and stress of travel. Because yes, it's amazing. Yes, it's incredible, but it's also taxing. I
Absolutely.
think Anthony Bourdain said, travel is this incredible experience, but it's also painful.
I'm sure.
It,
Yes, it
it
is.
can be. And so we do our best. I know I always have, all of my things that I need to bolster with. I have my own little travel blender that I make shakes with in the morning because I like to have, my food that supports me and my immune system. And so those little things to just make sure you bring things with you, especially when you're going to be gone for a while.
Mhm.
If you're just going for a weekend trip, no big deal. But if you're going to be there for, a week or a month or whatever, just bring some things from home that you love. And it's and journal,
Mm,
write down things
yes.
that write down food that you love or places that you love, or reminders to yourself about a specific area. If you're touring through Rome or Italy or anywhere really, if you think of something that you want to do next time, write it down to remind yourself, hey, we need to get back there,
Yeah.
because I need to go do this. This is something I want to see. Like last time, both my husband and I got sinus infections because there was smoke from a fire in the Cinque. So we were recovering when we got to Rome, and we were able to do a couple of things every day, but both of us were so exhausted. And so we got to see the Pantheon, and we got to go down to Ostia Antica, which is incredible. I definitely recommend it. But we had to kind of cut back on the things that we did. So we still have to go to Rome again.
Oh boy. Darn it.
Yeah, darn. That's such a chore to have to do.
Yeah. Awesome advice. I will add one final thing
Hmm.
before we wrap, and that
Yeah,
is when you're going to a country that does not have English as their primary language, learn the
seriously.
basics. It does not
Seriously.
take very long to learn how to say hello, goodbye, and thank you. If you
And
only
please.
know those three phrases, it will
Hmm.
make a huge difference. I know from being an American that when someone
Hmm.
comes here who does not speak English,
Hmm.
if I have to use Google Translate the entire time, but they say thank you and maybe they say please or whatever, it
Hmm.
means the world to me because I know they don't know the language, but they tried enough to at least have that
Yes.
little bit of interaction with me.
Yeah. And one other thing that I will say, if you go into different shops, especially in Venice, where there are artisans working, greet the proprietors, because that's something that Americans don't usually do because we're not accustomed to doing that. We're accustomed to having the shopkeeper come and jump on us, right? And so it's best to just say, if you're in Italy, buongiorno signor, buongiorno signora, posso guardare. That means, can I take a look around? And it just gives you that little bit of extra and lets them know that you understand what they expect.
Yeah, you made an effort.
Hmm.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like we could talk another hour,
I'm sure.
as long as you had enough honey on hand, but we have to wrap at some point. This has been such a joy, Jasmine. I'm so glad that we connected, and I
Oh,
really
me.
would love to have you back on, maybe a year from now or something, or maybe not even after you take your trip. Whatever, we can connect, but this was so great. So thank you so much, Jasmine, for taking this time with me, and best of luck on all your travels
Oh, it's been a
and with
pleasure.
and
Thank
with
you
the
so much.
books. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'll
Thank
link
you.
those in the description. So everyone go out and check those out. So,
Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen, that is episode 8 of the Where Have You Been podcast. What a fantastic guest that Jasmine was. Really fantastic stories, as always. Really just blessed to have such wonderful people here with me, and blessed to have all of you listening. I really appreciate you. If you stuck around this long, please take a minute and rate and review on whatever platform that you're listening on. And join us again next week. One more week, and we'll have another great guest here on the Where Have You Been podcast. New episodes every Sunday. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great day.